automobile accident and injury cases. It's the first time for Michael to be in a masjid. Um, I explained to him the etiquettes of being in a place of worship, and so we need to be at our best behavior to welcome him. Michael will be discussing some of the legal considerations of what happens when an individual is involved in an accident. I would like to just take a few minutes to discuss what not to do. Society is very litigious, and we need to be very careful in terms of how we conduct ourselves, all right? And generally speaking, I know when people think of accidents, they're thinking of automobile accidents. But accidents don't always have to be an automobile or traffic-related accidents. There are other types of accidents, you know, slip and falls in a commercial building, or product liability when, you know, we're using a product, a consumer product, which does not function the way it's supposed to function, and things of that sort. So I have a few items to discuss in terms of what not to do before Michael takes over the PowerPoint presentation, and then he will talk about what to do. First of all, do not panic, all right? It can be a very, very emotional and stressful time if you're involved in an accident. You know, stay cool, stay calm, and keep your cool, okay? If you're involved in an automobile accident, the recommendation is do not admit fault to anyone, okay? Now, that's not to say that we're encouraging you to misrepresent or lie. That's definitely not what we're saying. But you may not be aware of all the surrounding facts and circumstances before you conclude for yourself whether you're at fault or not, okay? Now, let's say if a police officer is at the scene, you have to be absolutely truthful in your statements to law enforcement, okay? So be truthful to them, but I mean, the recommendation is that if you're involved in an automobile accident and you think it's your fault, you don't jump out of your vehicle and inform the other parties, oh, I'm so sorry, it's my fault, it's my fault. Don't do that. There may be other considerations and circumstances where you may think it's your fault, but it could be some other reason which caused the accident, okay? Do not lie, all right? There may be other procedural as well as legal considerations which may absolve you from liability, even if you are at fault, okay? Do not drive away from the scene of the accident. You don't want to do that. The last thing you want to do is be responsible for a hit and run, okay? Because that can result in additional liability. Do not forget to collect information of all the parties involved in the accident, and by that we mean obtain their name, their address, ideally get a copy of their driver's license, their insurance information. Obviously, all of this applies if you are in a position to do so. All right, may Allah protect all of us, and I hope that no one's ever involved in an accident where they're not in a position to do so. Do not speak to other parties' insurance without a lawyer. Many times what happens is after the accident, you may receive some correspondence in the form of an email, maybe a letter, or maybe even a phone call from the insurance company of the other party, where they try to get you to say things which can and potentially can be damaging to your case, okay? So you don't want to talk to the opposing parties or other parties' insurance company without talking to a lawyer first. Do not leave the scene of the accident without taking adequate photos. And by photos, I mean don't just take photos of your own vehicle or your own injuries or the injuries of other parties involved, but the other vehicles involved, the surrounding areas, see if there are any witnesses, take photos, as many photos as you can. Videos are also very helpful. Do not neglect to report the accident to your own insurance company? And we get this question all the time when someone is involved in an accident. They don't want to file a claim against their own insurance company because they may think that it's not their fault and the other party's insurance company will have to cover the claim. That very well may be true, but it's always a good idea to at least report the accident to your own insurance company. Reporting the accident doesn't necessarily mean that you're filing a claim against your own insurance company, okay? So instead of your own insurance company finding out through some other third party that an accident has occurred, you should notify your own insurance, okay? Even if the other party is at fault, do not show aggression, okay? Do not show aggression with the other party, do not show aggression with any of the witnesses, and certainly do not show aggression with law enforcement. That can work against you, okay? Let the law take its course. I understand that we're limited for time, so I'm gonna keep my comments brief and have Michael take over the PowerPoint presentation. I also understand that this program is being broadcasted online. So those of you who are watching online, please use the question or comments functionality to pose your questions, and I think Brother Omaid said that he would print out those questions and bring them in front of us. I request all of you to please, if you have any questions, let's leave them for the end of the program. We'll have a Q&A session for about 10-15 minutes, inshallah. All right? Having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael.
All right. Thank you, Midhat, and thank you, everybody, for the warmth and generosity of your welcome. Like he said, this is my first time in a mosque, and everybody has been so kind to me, and so I just thank you for inviting me in and showing me such a warm welcome. I hope I can repay it by giving you some useful information. So like he said, my name is Michael Lyman. I'm an attorney, and one of the areas of the law I specialize in is personal injury litigation, which means I help people who have been injured. I represent them to the insurance company and to the court if necessary. So I've helped a lot of people deal with accidents, especially car accidents. So I've seen a lot of the process, and hopefully I can offer you some helpful tips that will take away some of the edge, give you a little bit of confidence and a bit of a clearer path forward if, God forbid, you're ever involved in an accident. So our society is built on trust. Whenever you go into a building, you trust that the engineer who designed it to withstand the forces that it would experience. When you're on the road driving, you trust that the other drivers will obey the speed limit, obey the traffic laws, and do their part to keep you safe. There's products every day that you don't think about, you use all the time, that you trust to just work as intended. Accidents happen when this trust is breached. Especially on the road, right? They'll be speeding, or they'll make a turn that they're not supposed to, or any number of things. They will breach that trust, and a lot of times somebody can get hurt. So when that does happen, it can be totally unexpected. So we have a little video here, and there is going to be an accident. You can see it's just kind of a quiet little store, but there is going to be an accident. Don't worry, nobody's going to get seriously hurt. It's kind of funny. But I just want you to take a look at the scene and try and guess where the accident is going to come from. So once you've got your guess, we'll go ahead and play it. They never play, do they? Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe there will not be an accident.
There might not be. I don't think I've ever seen a video in a PowerPoint work. I thought I had it set up perfectly so that it would work. I had. Oh well.
Let's go back.
This is a scene.
Right, the video's not working.
A guy falls through the ceiling right about here. It's kind of funny. And that's the point is, it can feel like that when you're involved in an accident, right? You're just walking along, minding your business, and then suddenly it's a normal day, and then 1 second later, you're an accident victim, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do? Our lawyer's gonna get involved. What do I do with the insurance company? What do I do about my medical bills? You've got all these problems. So the way and there are some things you can do to address these problems and face them confidently. So the way that we've kind of got our roadmap set up, we just have several tips for things to do. First, things to do at the scene. Midhat already addressed several of those, but we're going to talk about things you need to do at the scene. Next, we're going to talk about things you need to do after the accident, I'd say within about 24 hours of the accident. Then we've got some more long-term considerations as you're going through medical treatment and dealing with the insurance company. And then finally, we've got some pointers for what to do if the accident was your fault, which sometimes they are. So the first step is things to do at the scene. And the absolute first thing you need to do is make sure everybody is safe. That would be starting with yourself, and then the people in your car, and then the people in the other car. And unfortunately, there's not one correct thing to do in every situation. It really is very situation specific. So for example, if you're on a little residential street, 25-mile-an-hour freeway, the safest thing to do in a lot of cases might be to move the cars off to the side of the road, get out, walk off to the side of the road, and handle everything there. There are other cases, if you're on I-45 during rush hour, it might not be safe to get out of your car. It might not be safe to move the car. The safest thing in that instance might be to sit tight and wait for emergency services to arrive. So I can't tell you the one right thing to do in every situation, but you need to make sure everybody is safe first thing. Once everything is safe and the situation is kind of stable, call the police, even if the other driver doesn't want the police involved, right? Just call the police, say, hey, we've been in an accident. They will probably ask if anybody needs an ambulance, and that can be a hard call to make. I've got a few things listed here. These are some situations where I think you always need an ambulance. There's lots of situations where you might, and you just have to make that call. But the few situations, I would say 100% of the time get an ambulance there. First, if somebody is bleeding heavily, blood loss, that can kill a person in minutes. If somebody's bleeding a lot, that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. If somebody has any broken bones can lead to other problems. They can cause internal bleeding. They can cause other problems besides the broken bone. That needs to be looked at quickly. If somebody was unconscious for any period of time, they need to see an ambulance. And keep in mind, unconsciousness isn't like you see in the movies, right? You watch the movie, James Bond gets knocked out, and then he wakes up hours later, and he gets interrogated by the bad guy. That doesn't really happen in real life. People don't get knocked out for hours or minutes at a time and wake up just fine. Even a second or two of being unconscious can be evidence that there was a brain injury. So you need to have that looked at as soon as possible. Similarly, if anybody hit their head on anything, people hit their head on the steering wheel, on the side posts, those are real common places for people to hit their head. That can again cause brain injury. That needs to be looked at. Finally, if anybody just seems kind of out of it, they're disoriented, they can't stand up, they can't walk straight, that could be a whole host of things. That could be head injury again, that could be spine injury, that could be a lot of things, and that needs to be looked at as soon as possible to figure out what the injury is so it doesn't get any worse. The next thing to do is you need to exchange information with the other party and give your report to the police. The police don't always show up. They don't show up to every accident, especially in Harris County where they're super busy. They will try and, the dispatcher on the phone will try and get a sense of how serious the accident was. And if the impression is, oh, it's not that serious, they probably won't send out a unit to document the scene. If that's the case, then you need to do a lot of the work that he would have done normally. The most important thing is to get the information of the other driver. And the information that you need, I mean, get as much as you can, but the stuff that you absolutely need is the other driver's name and then their insurance information. That would be mostly the insurance company that they use and the policy number. That's the stuff you absolutely have to open a claim against their insurance. If you don't have that information, then it will be difficult, if not impossible, to start a claim. You'll have to track the person down.
Just a quick comment on that, sorry to interrupt. Sometimes we've come across situations where a person was involved in the accident and the other party who caused the accident just left the scene of the accident without exchanging information, okay? In that situation, what you can do is at least try to take a picture of the number plate, okay? A lot of information can be pulled based on the vehicle owner and the registration. All right, so don't sweat. It's not the end of the world if you didn't get a chance to exchange this information. There are still ways to remedy that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So like I said, get all the information you can. But the most important things, I would say, take a picture of the other driver's license plate, or excuse me, not license plate, driver's license and insurance card. If you have those two things, you can open a claim. The other thing, Midhat already explained a lot of this, but you need to document the scene, not just your car. People, after they're in an accident, they get really concerned with their own car, like, oh, I need to make sure I know what the damage is to my car so I can fix it, which is fair. You should do that. But you also need to take pictures of the whole scene, right? All the cars, all the injuries. Basically, there's going to be insurance agents and lawyers and potentially even a jury and a judge looking at this. And you need to be able to take enough pictures that somebody who has no idea what happened can get a pretty good idea of how the accident happened from your pictures. Only do that if it's safe, please. Don't go wandering out into traffic trying to get the perfect angle on a shot. But take as many pictures as possible. And then finally get the contact information of any witnesses. Unfortunately, a lot of times people will see an accident and then just kind of keep driving, go about their day. But if you see anybody who saw what happened, even if they only saw part of it, even if they only heard what happened, go and get their name and phone number. Have them talk to the police. They might not always wait around for the police, but if possible, have them talk to the police and tell the police what happened as well. So the next things to do, these are things to do after the accident, right? I say within 24 hours, but it's good to take some time to calm down. It can be a really big shock after you get in an accident, so take some time to calm down, process what happened. And then the first thing you want to do is open a claim with the other party's insurance company. Usually that's as easy as going to the insurance company's website, and they will almost certainly have a link at the top or a big button somewhere that says open a claim. Click that and you will put in all the information, including the information you got earlier, which is the driver's name and the policy number, all that stuff, which is why it's so important to get it at the scene. Next, we've already talked about this, notify your own insurance. They want to know. And then finally, if you're still in pain the day after, if you wake up after being in an accident and you're still in pain, you should start arranging to see a doctor, right? It's normal to feel some pain right after an impact, even a slow impact, just because your muscles are straining and there's kind of a shock to the system. But if you're still in pain the day after, that can mean that you injured something, right? You pulled something, you tore something. Even if it's not immediately obvious, that is a sign that there could be an injury that a doctor might want to look at. Finally, these are just the things to sort of think about long term as you're dealing with the fallout of an accident. First thing is to keep in mind that if your car gets hit, there are two claims, right? There's one claim for the damage to your property, and there's another claim for the damage to your body, right? We call that property damage and personal injury. The property damage claim is usually a lot simpler to work out than the personal injury claim. For the property damage, there's a couple things that might happen. First, if your car is drivable, you'll probably just take it into a shop and get an estimate from the repair shop. Sometimes the insurance company might want to send out an inspector to look at the car and see what the damage is for themselves. Once that's done, they'll get you an estimate for the damages. They'll say, we think it'll cost you this much to repair the damages. They'll cut you a check, and you'll just pay the repair shop with that. You can also claim diminished value, right? Because a car that's been in an accident, even if it's restored to how it was before, the fact that it's been in an accident makes it worth less. So the insurance company has to pay you for that. They usually won't. Well, they never will unless you ask for it, so make sure you ask for it. Personal injury is a little more complicated because they have to pay for your medical treatment, right? Whatever medical treatment it takes to get you whole again, they have to pay for that. But they also have to pay for stuff that you can't really assign a dollar value to, right? That's just the law. There's things like pain and suffering, disability, disfigurement, things like that, which the law says you get compensation for, but, right, you can't, how much money is it worth to sprain a wrist or herniate a disc, right? There's no dollar amount. So that's one of the things that makes the injury side of it more complicated. But the biggest piece of advice is that you should not settle it until either you are fully healed or you know what it will take to get you fully healed. A lot of the times, especially if it's a more serious accident, you might get a call from the insurance company a few days later, and they'll just say, hey, we'll pay you $10,000 right now to settle this case. And it's tempting, right? Because I think any one of us here could use $10,000 in our pockets. But if your medical treatment ends up being $20,000, then you're out of pocket that extra $10,000 because you've already settled with the insurance company. So make sure you know what it's going to cost to get you better before you accept any money from the insurance company.
Just to embellish on that point, we've seen time and time again where a person involved in an accident is going to get a call from the insurance company and say, hey, here's a check for $10,000, just like Michael said. But your claim may be worth $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 plus dollars, all right? Don't fall into that trap. It can be enticing to take that check, and they'll have you sign what's called a release of liability, okay? That release of liability is essentially barring you from filing any future claims against that insurance company as it relates to that accident. So if you take the $10,000 and later on you realize the value of your claim was $30,000, you just lost $20,000. Okay, that's why it's always advisable, just like Michael said, to settle the bodily injury or personal injury portion of the claim after you are fully healed. And just a quick couple of comments on that as well. You may think you're fully healed, but you may not be fully healed, all right? Unless you're a medical professional, have your doctor tell you whether you're fully healed or not, all right? That's kind of the same concept as if after the accident you think you may not be injured, but in reality you may be injured. The nature of certain injuries are such that they surface at a later time, a day late, 2 days late, 5 days late, a few weeks later, all right? But the advice is don't delay going to a doctor, because the more you delay, the more ammunition you're giving to the to the insurance company, because they can always come back and poke holes in your claim and say, hey, you got involved in an accident on day one. Why did you wait 20 days to go to a doctor? You must be making this up. Maybe you're truly not injured, all right? So if you've made a decision to go see a doctor and try to do it within the next few days after the accident.
Right. Yeah, that's a really important point. I mean, the insurance company, they're going to find every reason they can to pay you less money. That's their job, right? They're saving money. So the best thing is to not give them any of those reasons. The next thing is, I get a lot of calls from clients who are worried because they're getting letters from the other driver's insurance company, and the other insurance company is telling them, you have to do this, you have to do that. And they kind of get this sense that, oh, I have to do what this other insurance company is telling me to do, or else I don't have a claim, I don't get my money, or whatever. And that's not the case, right? You're allowed to negotiate with the insurance company. Your claim is created by the law, right? It's not created by the insurance company. It exists because the law says if somebody hurts you, they have to make you whole. So, for example, if they give you an offer, you might have, $20,000 in medical bills. The insurance company will come along and offer you $11,000. And you'll think, well, that doesn't make any sense. I have $20,000 in medical bills. Why are they trying to shortchange you? It's because they're hoping you accept the money and then just go away and stop being a problem. But again, the law says they have to compensate you, right? It's not what they say. So if you don't like an offer from the insurance company, you're allowed to reject it. And that's every single one of my clients. I always advise them just reject the first offer from the insurance company because it's never their best. They probably will come back with a higher offer if you feel like they're ripping you off. The final point, and this is kind of a caveat to everything we've said so far, is that your claim exists for only 2 years after the date of the accident. It's called a statute of limitations, right? It's because we don't want cases over super old accidents being dragged through the courts when nobody even remembers what happened anymore. So within 2 years of the date of the accident, you need to either settle your case or file a lawsuit. If you haven't done either of those things, then your claim is worth nothing. Now, most cases do manage to settle before then, but if you're on the fence about something, you need to act sooner rather than later because there is a ticking clock here. Next, not everybody is a plaintiff, right? For every person hurt in an accident, there's usually somebody whose fault it was. And unfortunately, sometimes it might be your fault that somebody else was hurt in an accident. So we've already gone over some of this. Two very important points. Don't admit fault. Fault is something for the insurance companies and the lawyers to figure out. You don't have to make any determination on that. Don't lie, especially don't lie to the police, right? Don't turn a minor civil issue into a major crime. And keep in mind, this is why you have insurance, right? You're paying this insurance bill every month. It's annoying, it's expensive, but you're paying it for a situation exactly like this. Your insurance company's job is to handle this for you. They will negotiate the case, they will pay the bills of the other person. If you are sued, I think a lot of people don't know this because I've gotten some calls from very worried people. One of the things that you pay your insurance company to do, one of the things they have to do is if you are sued over an accident, they have to hire a lawyer for you and pay that lawyer to defend you. So if you cause an accident and 9 months later somebody shows up with papers, hand you some papers and say, you've been sued, don't panic, just contact your insurance company. They will hire you a lawyer, they will pay the lawyer. I talk to a lot of people as well who are really panicked. Oh, the lawyers are going to come after my house, they're going to come after my car, my bank account, whatever. Most lawyers are not interested in doing that. actually, it's very difficult to take those things in Texas. It's impossible in some cases. Most lawyers, and I can speak as a lawyer who's sued a lot of people, most lawyers are just after the insurance company's money. That's not to say that they can't try and come after some of your things, but a lot of times it's not worth the effort, because most people don't have a ton of money. However, if you are somebody who has a ton of money, if you own multiple cars, if you own multiple houses, if you have a big bank account, then you need to make sure that you have very good insurance, because if a lawyer thinks he can take that stuff, then he probably will try. Yes, your premiums will probably go up. Next point, yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's better than having to pay all those expenses out of pocket.
Just a couple of comments on premiums going up. We get a lot of calls from people who don't want to run a claim through their own insurance company, despite the fact that it was not their fault, okay? If the other insurance is not covering you or making you whole or for whatever reason, and you have the opportunity or the option to run the claim through your own insurance, you don't do it for the fear of increased premiums. That's a genuine concern, okay? I know nowadays a lot of these large insurance companies have these no-fault provisions where they say if the accident was not your fault, your premium will not go up. That's just one of the factors that the insurance company uses to determine what your premium is going to be. At the end of the day, the way these insurance companies price the premium is they're pricing risk, essentially, right? And there are a variety of factors they're looking at when they determine what your premium should be. Where you live, how old you are, how many members in your family, what type of vehicle you drive, what your accident history is like, and what risk category you're in, and a variety of other factors. They have they have these very complex formulas to determine what your premium should be. So the fact that you got into an accident which was not your fault and you ran it through your own insurance company, and your insurance company tells you that your premium is not going to go up, that's just one of the factors in their formula, okay? But because of the other factors, your premiums still may go up. So it is a genuine concern. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And then the final point here is you may have something, not everybody has it, but some people do. You may have something, it'll be called no-fault coverage or PIP coverage. PIP stands for Personal Injury Protection. What that is that it is coverage that pays for medical expenses regardless of whose fault the accident was, right? So even if the accident was your fault, the PIP coverage will pay for some of your medical bills. It's usually not very much. It's usually only $2,000 or $3,000. Yeah, maximum $5,000. So yeah, it's not a lot. But if you are injured in an accident and it was your own fault, it's something, right? And it's something you should ask your insurance company about, because they're never just going to come out and offer you money, right? You have to ask them for it. Final slide here, just some situations where you should consider consulting with an attorney, right? Not every accident needs to get a lawyer involved, but here are some where I think you should consider talking to an attorney. There are some obvious cases, right? If somebody died or was seriously injured, that might be a good time to call an attorney, because it's going to be a little more complicated to figure out. But there are some less obvious ones as well. Again, if you're still in pain the day after, that can be evidence of, there's things like sprains and tears, herniated discs are really common. If the airbag's deployed, right, so the airbags are sort of calibrated to only go off after experiencing a certain amount of force, right? So if the airbags go off, that means that the car manufacturer at least thinks this is a more serious accident, and a more serious accident is going to be more complicated and might benefit from having a lawyer involved. Swelling, tenderness, or bruising in any part of your body doesn't just do that, right? It does that because something got hurt. pain in the neck or lower back. Those are unfortunately really common places that people get injured. And injuries in those places can be, if they're not properly addressed, they can be permanent. And insurance companies don't like to admit that. That even minor accidents can cause actually some permanent or almost permanent injuries to those parts of your body. And then the final point where you might want to consider getting a lawyer is if the accident involves a commercial vehicle. That would be like a semi-truck, a delivery van, or a box truck. And the reason you want an attorney in these cases is because their insurance policy limits tend to be much, much higher. Right? Whereas most people, their insurance policy limits will be $30,000 to $50,000. These commercial vehicles, their policy limits can run up to multiple millions of dollars. And what that means is actually, paradoxically, the insurance companies are going to be much, much sort of greedier with paying out anything on those policies, right? Because they know they're worth so much, they don't want to sort of paint a target on their back and have every lawyer in the country trying to get a new vacation house off of one of these policies, right? So I would say, I mean, if you have an identical accident, like one person gets in an accident with just another normal driver, another person gets in an accident with a semi-truck, similar accidents, similar injuries, the offer from the insurance company for the person involved with a semi-truck is probably going to be, I'd say, 20 to 40% lower than what the person in the normal accident is going to be offered. And that's because the insurance company has this multi-million-dollar policy, and they know that we know that they have a multi-million-dollar policy. So their strategy is going to be, we're going to save every penny. We're not going to make it easy for anybody to recover off of this policy. And unfortunately, that means you might have to get a lawyer involved. All right, so for this final slide, these are just some sort of miscellaneous considerations that didn't really fit in anywhere else. If you're on the fence about whether or not to see a doctor after you got in an accident, see a doctor, right? It's better to go see a doctor and be told, oh yeah, you're fine, you don't need any treatment, than to not see a doctor and have an injury heal incorrectly that can cause you problems for the rest of your life, right? So if you think you might need to see a doctor, go see a doctor, help your injuries heal properly. Again, we discussed this, but if you delay treatment, if you delay making a claim, the insurance company will try and make a big deal out of that. They'll try and pay you less, so don't give them a reason to pay you less. Most injury cases only apply to physical injuries, and that would be a physical injury to either your body or your property. It's only in very rare cases that you can recover for like an economic injury, like just losing money, or like a psychological or emotional injury. Most of the time you cannot recover for those types of injuries. It has to be something physical. I would strongly recommend everybody get underinsured motorist coverage. Underinsured motorist coverage, that just works if you exhaust another driver's policy limits, which is unfortunately easy to do because medical care is very expensive in this country. If you exhaust another driver's policy limits, then your underinsured coverage will kick in and pay those bills for you. It's very useful to have, and it is more expensive, yes, but it can buy a lot of peace of mind if you're ever involved in a more serious accident and have to pay the bills somehow. Finally, if you're thinking about filing a lawsuit, consulting with a lawyer can help. It's what you should do. Not everybody's claim is worth $1 million, right? I think everybody's heard some story somewhere that, oh yeah, I had my brother's friend's cousin's wife or whatever got a lawyer and got $1 million for this minor accident. It happened sometimes. There were probably other factors that made it worth that much. It wasn't just, probably was not just a minor accident. But that doesn't happen all the time, right? Sometimes it's not worth filing a lawsuit over certain accidents. Sometimes it is. A lawyer can advise you on when it's worth it and when it's not.
Just a quick few comments on uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. For those who don't know, underinsured, just like Michael explained, means that if your claim is, let's say, worth $60,000 and the insurance company of the party at fault is only covering you for $30,000, essentially you just lost $30,000. You can file a claim against your own insurance company for the additional $30,000. That's what underinsured coverage means. Then there's uninsured coverage, which means if the party at fault had no coverage, then your own insurance will pay for your losses as well. The difference in the premium when you're signing up for these insurances, it's common practice. I do it all the time, right? And I'm sure all of you as well, or many of you as well. When you're shopping for insurance, you're just looking for the cheapest premium, okay? We're not paying attention to the details. The devil's always in the details. So if you have an option or a choice between purchasing UM or UIM, uninsured or underinsured coverage, it's only going to be an extra maybe 3 to 5% of the premium. It is definitely worth it. Go for it.
It will also cover you in the event of a hit and run. If you're ever involved in that, that's UM, UIM will cover you for a hit and run. But that is all the information that we came prepared with today. Thank you very much for your attention. We wanted to take a few minutes to do some Q&A. Looks like we have about 20 minutes. Both of our contact information is here on the screen here. That's our office address there at the bottom. It's pretty close here. It's about 1960 in Champions Forest, big Wells Fargo building. So if you think of a question later that didn't occur to you today, please give me a call, shoot me an email. I love answering questions. I love helping people out. So whatever you need help on, please don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us, and we'd love to answer your questions. And with that, we will go to Q&A if anybody has any.
Yes. My question is that if I'm going to hire you, what do you charge? What do you charge?
So our firm, as well as most personal injury law firms, we work on, it's called contingency. So that means we don't charge you anything up front. We don't charge you like an hourly rate. We recover a percentage of whatever we recover on your behalf.
Usually, depending on the complexity of the case, the standard is 1/3. If a case goes to litigation, it can be upwards of 40 or sometimes 45%. No, so the law entitles an injured party to recover for their medical injuries, their expenses related to the accident, not the attorney's fees plus pain and suffering. Okay?
Just for the property damage, for the bodily damage, from that side you did not take any portion.
No, it's the other way around. These fees are for the bodily injury component of your claim, not the property damage component of your claim. And I'll be very brutal and honest with everyone here, and just like I am when people come into the office. There's no money to be made on property damage, okay? If your car was worth, let's say, $25,000, the insurance company will give you 25 or 23 or 24. You're not making money, okay, on that. And for that reason, the vast majority of law firms are not going to represent you on the property damage component of the claim, because let's say if you do get $25,000 for your vehicle, which was worth $25,000, the attorney takes 1/3 of that, you're at a loss, okay? And usually there's only, a little bit of leeway in terms of the property damage component of the claim. You're talking a few $1,000s, not much.
let everyone know that we have refreshments in the gym and on the front desk side, and then we'll continue, inshallah.
I think
Excellent.
he was before you. You had a question?
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Midhat Bhai. Very, very informative session. Been
Thank
learning
you.
for about 20 years. I learned a few things, so thank you so much for your time. Do you have any suggestions for us commoners who try to write any tips? I'm seeing a lot of cameras these days. Anything that you would advise as far as getting proactive to protect yourself? Dashboard camera.
Dash cameras are very helpful, actually. Um, be, yeah, they're legal. Um, and they provide kind of an ambiguous record of what happened, right? Because I see it all the time. Somebody sits down for an interview or a deposition about the accident, and you hear as many different versions of the story as there are people talking about what happened, right? So what a dash cam can do is it's objective. It says, here's what happened, here's what time of day it was, right? All this stuff. And what happens with those ambiguities is that a good defense lawyer will try and destroy a case with those ambiguities, right? Well, you said it was raining, but he said it was not raining, so you must be lying. You're a lying liar who lies, and the jury shouldn't believe you, right? If you have a dash cam video, that kind of all goes away, and it's just, here's what happened.
So dash just on the front side. We have to put in the back side also.
Well, you don't have to put a dash
Yeah.
cam, okay? The law doesn't require you to put a dash cam. It's advisable, yes. I know they get those 360-degree cameras also. I mean, obviously, the more you want to spend, the better protection you have, I guess.
Mine was hit by back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just a point on that, another just surfaced. 2 or 3 days ago, I was talking to another lawyer friend of mine. He also does injury cases. He had a case where his client was injured, and he was faking the injury. Okay, the other insurance company went on this guy's social media pages, and this guy maybe put a post in the gym where he's pumping 500 pounds, and he's claiming a back injury. So be careful. Don't do that. There's a question here.
Uninsured coverage. Usually I see it on the policy, but underinsured I never see on the policy as an option. So you have to ask to get it. Yes. Basically.
You want to take that?
Yeah, they're usually the same coverage. I think in just about every policy I've seen, it's UMUIM, which stands for uninsured motorist, underinsured motorist. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it where they're two separate items. It's usually just one line. It's the same policy, the same coverage on each
That's right.
policy.
Most of the time they're together.
Most of them, but
Yes.
policy I know.
There may be exceptions.
Yeah,
There may be exceptions. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter which company you have. See, every company has a lot of products, right? So it matters which policy you have, not company necessarily.
But yeah, if you're worried you're not covered for one or the other, that would probably be something to ask. Just call your insurance company and ask them if you'd be covered.
And you can always purchase it later too, so you can add it to your policy. I think you were first.
Thank you. Go for it.
So I'll respond to that. You're supposed to give them your ID, okay? I've seen people hide their address because for fear of not wanting the other party to know where you are, they'll find out. It's the information age. Okay, it's the information age. If you don't feel comfortable giving your address, fine, you can, block it. But with the click of a few buttons, once they have your driver's license number and your insurance policy, and even if it doesn't come out, it's going to eventually come out, if it goes through litigation during discovery phase. So they'll have it one way or the other.
Yeah, it's just to avoid any kind of retaliation or that kind of stuff,
I understand. I understand.
Any kind of if there's, for example, a lot of times these things, we have young kids and things like that. Sometimes it leads into a confrontational scenario, and you just want to avoid, just trying to avoid these type of scenarios. That's what I'm saying.
I can see it's a valid concern. Yeah, sure.
So basically, you have to give your license, basically, right?
Your name and your driver's license number. Okay, you can block out your address on the scene if you want. To the other party, okay? To the police, no. You obviously, yeah, you have to disclose.
So, okay, so thank you for that. The second question is, should you insist on having a police officer come out despite being a small, like a fender bender, for example? Because I was in a scenario a couple years ago where, it was someone else's fault. However, when it came time to it, I didn't call the police, but he completely reversed the scenario and lied and, said, no, that's not how it was. And, I was like, well, luckily I got a number of a witness. But if I had not, it's open for interpretation in that case. So I'm of the mindset of like, no matter how minor it is, I'm going to insist that someone come and document, the scene. Is that, what about that?
So I would definitely insist. Okay, it's sort of a judgment call. But even if you insist, that doesn't mean the police is going to arrive at the scene. My wife was involved in an accident 6 months ago. I insisted on a cop. We waited 4.5 hours. Nobody showed up, but we insisted. So just because you insist doesn't mean someone will show up. Because eventually the police report is what establishes fault. One of the main fundamental components of filing a claim is who's at fault, of determining ultimately who's at fault. And the police report usually is the most credible, strongest form of evidence which establishes fault. That's why I would insist.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying, was like, especially when you know it's not your fault, I would insist that someone come out.
Sure.
But then, you have the other guy who's probably saying, no, I'm out of here, man. I'm not going to stick around. I gave you my information. I'm out of here.
That's exactly what happened with my wife's case, yes.
So what do we do in that case, to absolve ourselves from any kind of, complication, in that case?
So what we did was, police never came, okay? We went home and immediately wrote down exactly what happened, because you're going to forget the next day, okay? And so we sort of, had a written narrative of what transpired, and we shared that with both of the insurance companies. Because, obviously the other party may give a different narrative, right? And of course, then you go back and forth with respect to establishment of fault.
So we have people online and sisters on the other side who are not able to hear questions. If you don't mind repeating it, or I can give them the mic.
Oh, sure. I'll repeat the question. Sorry, I didn't realize we were being heard on the other side. My apologies. You had a question.
Thank you.
You mentioned earlier that the insurance company is bound to get you a lawyer to defend you, but it doesn't cover the fee then?
Yes, it covers the fee.
It does cover the fee.
Yes. So yeah, they will hire you a lawyer. They will pay that lawyer's hourly fee. Yeah, it should be nothing out of pocket for you.
Only if you're sued.
Yeah, only if
Only
you're
if you're
sued.
the defendant in the case. Not. No. They're not going to hire a lawyer for you if you're the plaintiff.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there may be certain exceptions to that if there are multiple parties involved and the insurance feels that there may be a claim against a third party. But generally, no.
But yeah.
They give me a lawyer, I'm not interested, I get my own.
You actually, so part of the insurance contract is that you give the insurance company. So the question was, I'll repeat the question. The question was, if I don't want the insurance company's lawyer, can I go out and get my own? The answer is no. Part of the insurance contract is that you sort of give up your right to handle this claim to the insurance company. So even there might be a case where you want to settle a claim and the insurance company doesn't want to settle, you can't even make that call. If the insurance company says, no, we're going to let them sue you, then yeah, it's their money. That's exactly why. It's their money. I think you had a question. Thank you.
Question. Let's say you went through a personal injury case, for instance, you're in litigation, and let's say the party passes away. What happens there?
Which party?
Repeat the question.
The party that got hit? So the question is if there's a case in litigation and the party that got hit passes away, what happens? That's called a survivorship action. And last time I checked, Texas does not allow those types of claims. In Texas, a person's claim dies with them. Now, if the death was related to the accident, that there might be a claim for wrongful death by the loved ones of the deceased. But yeah, last time I checked, the estate basically of the deceased does not have a claim.
But let me just clarify, to just embellish on what Michael said. If the death occurred because of the accident, then the loved ones of the deceased may have a claim. Well, all that comes out in discovery, and then medical and professional opinions would establish what the cause of the death was.
Yeah, one thing you would want to do, if you strongly suspect that a death was caused by an accident, it would be to pay for an autopsy. Right? Because not everybody who dies gets a super thorough autopsy. But if you really strongly suspect, hey, this person died because of the accident, you're going to want a professional opinion. Because otherwise it's just one side saying, oh, it was because of the accident, and the other side saying, no, it wasn't. And there's not really anything objective to rely on there.
You've raised your hand multiple times, sorry.
Once again, Midhat, Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for a great session, and Michael, welcome here. Right, I have two questions. My first question is, what is the consideration for a private property accident? A lot of time you are on a parking lot or somewhere else, and police says, hey, it happened on the private property, and versus on the road. My second question is, your teenagers, your kid, or maybe 18 or 19 years old, who is on your insurance, they happen to be in an accident, you are at home, and police is in conversation with them. What is, how much leeway you have to represent that team going over there? So these are my two questions. If you want me to repeat it, I can repeat it.
I'll repeat the question. Your first question is, what are the rules of getting into an accident on a private property versus a public property? Your second question is, if your teenager child gets involved in an accident, as a parent, what is your role, in that? Do you want to answer that?
Yeah. So for the first question about if the accident happens on private property, excuse me, so as far as the law is concerned, it's the same, right? If a person is negligent on private property, it's the same as being negligent on a public roadway. It is complicated because the police, like you said, the police might refuse to show up on private property and say, no, it's none of our business. But you still have a claim against their insurance, right? Because their negligence damaged you in some way. That's what insurance is there for. So yeah, it'll be complicated by the fact you don't have a police report, but you do still have a claim as valid as any other. Yes, correct.
But if that does occur, I would advise that you reach out to the property owner to see if they have any cameras in place, and then really rely on witnesses in that situation, because if the police is not going to arrive, then you need this supplemental evidence to establish fault. That may be very helpful.
No, not a question. I was just going to say, because in the parking
Yeah, it can get complicated.
Yeah. What I would do in that situation, so if like you said, if there's a situation where it occurs in a mall or a Walmart or something, and they say, we won't give you any security footage without the police, that would be another sign to get a lawyer. What a lawyer is going to do is send what's called a letter of evidence preservation to the mall. It's basically a letter saying, hey, a claim exists, you're on notice that you need to preserve this footage, which may be evidence. They will provide it, and then if it ends up being in a lawsuit, then they can subpoena that from the mall and have it in hand. And then your second question. So, what happens if your teenagers are involved in an accident? So, depending on the age of the teenager, if they're on your insurance policy, then there's a claim against your insurance policy, just as if you were involved in an accident. Parents usually aren't responsible for their kids' actions. At least it's not like you're not responsible 100% of the time. It's not what we call strict liability. Your child has agency, right? They can make choices for themselves. So they will sort of be judged according to their age and experience. If they're a minor, they're sort of judged according to their age and experience. If they're an adult, then they're just considered as an adult. But in most cases, a parent is not going to end up being personally liable for something that their kid has done. There are exceptions to that, but they're kind of rare. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very convenient for the insurance companies to say. If you disagree with that, again, you can get a lawyer and try and prove them wrong. Yeah.
The question for those who are not in this hall was that this individual got involved in a Walmart parking lot, and the police arrived and they assessed 50-50 liability on both parties. That's
Yeah.
fine, and the insurance companies are going to handle it based on a 50-50 allocation.
Just one quick question. Do you guys, you already mentioned that you guys don't charge for fees, but do you have like a half an hour, 1 hour free consultation if someone's,
For accident cases, consultations are free, yes.
And you have the last question.
Police does not show up at the scene. Should we report to police, or who will decide the case now?
So so the question is, what happens if the police don't show up to the scene and make a report? How do we determine who's at fault? The answer is that it's more difficult, but it's not impossible. So a lot of the times it's still clear based on what the parties say to their insurance company. Because after you get into an accident, your insurance company, both insurance companies probably will call you and get a statement regarding what happened. Based on those statements, a lot of time they can establish fault. And if they still disagree, then it's going to go to a jury trial, and the jury will just eventually determine who's more credible, who do we think is telling the truth, and they will make a finding.
Yeah, absolutely. Get a lawyer involved. He or she would assess the situation and determine whether it's even worth pursuing a claim in certain situations, right? You don't just sue every single time, right? Getting wrapped up in court for 2 plus 3, 4, 5 years, and and trying to come to a resolution on a case which is worth a few $1,000s may not be worth it.
Just you told us before that now in the Harris County, you have to either lie that there is everybody dying, otherwise it would never come.
Yeah, we don't recommend lying, but well, that was the last question. Our deadline was 9 o'clock. It's 8:59, so we'll wrap it up. Thank you, everyone. I hope this was helpful. All right.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Please do not forget to take the refreshments. Head to the gym. It's near the front desk area.